So, welcome to The Raise. I'm your host, Jade, and I'm really excited to be here today with our guest, Tommie Edwards, who is the co-founder of TECH1M. It's a recruitment automation and skills assessment platform that helps businesses to attract, evaluate, and hire quality candidates, which also allows their users to hire exactly as they want to, all in one place, which I can imagine a lot of us need. So today we'll be talking about the round they've closed and the team's experience of doing this, especially in this climate, which we know is tougher to raise in than it's been before. So Tommie, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for having me.
No, it's fine. It's great to have you here. I think it would be really good to start with a bit about your background, why you started TECH1M.
Okay. So for me, like I said, thanks again for coming on the show to actually talk about this. So for me, it all started pretty much at the age of 16, just basically being an entrepreneur. So I've always just knew that. And gradually, I found myself in the corporate world. And finding myself in the corporate world pretty much is me then doing, project management, bringing digital transformation to Fortune 100 companies like your Barclays, your UBS, and the rest. And quickly, I started to learn, the power of technology and how you could basically use that to scale things. And considering I already had like an entrepreneurship background, now pairing that with tech just basically opens up a whole lot of doors. So my very first tech startup was a logistic business. And so I had this logistic application, which did quite well in terms of doing the business in itself was um, it was just about, basically understanding the nuances and trying to figure out ways in which you understand every aspect of the business, speaking to customers as much as possible. And I was able to do that. I grew that business, bootstrapped it to 7 figures in revenue. And at some point later, I sold that. Went ahead to do another one, which this time around was in basically events. And so doing the event, that came out of a personal experience. And so while I was at my wedding, I was like, oh, I wish there was a place where I could just find all, people at the same time, and I could just be able to find all the different suppliers I needed. So I created the B2C of that, and quickly I transitioned into creating the B2B, where I could also then find whatever events and network with people at the same time. We got some very, very big players to use this. But quickly, I realized that this wasn't something I could bootstrap. This needed a whole lot of investment, and I didn't have the knowledge of how to raise money. All I knew was backing myself. So I ended up selling that to a company that needed that technology because building technology wasn't so difficult for us because that's something that myself and my co-founder just know how to do. We've done that for 100 companies. We know how to build. So I quickly realized I needed to understand how we could start building for people and gradually then come up with a solid idea that we can build and take to the next level. Really then using other people's funds. This is me understanding how to actually raise money. And this was how we started TechBree. So TechBree is like call it how they call it, a software development agency that also does digital marketing. And It's not just something where you come to us. We had very small clients, but we also had enterprise clients that were doing billions of dollars. And the whole point is we basically deliver your project. So we come into your organization and basically deliver that. And it started to grow. We ended up having over 60 full-time staff in 5 different countries. And we also then had over 200 part-time staff also within TechBree. And it was true. This means that TECH1M was born. And TECH1M was born out of the idea that I wanted talent right now. And I needed to, lots of people apply, but then I have to sift them. I have to go through another platform to find them. I have to go through another platform to realize if this person is good quality. Then I have to send them an offer using another document. I just felt it was too cumbersome. And I felt there should be something out there that would be quite easy to use. I went into market research. We realized that, yeah, there are some people that are quite close. However, they're developing mainly for enterprises. And so they're developing for large enterprise businesses. So what happens to the small and medium-sized businesses like myself that still wants to be able to do this, but, for one reason or the other, just can't afford those enterprise platforms. And that was ended up creating TECH1M. So, of course, TECH1M in itself took a whole lot of, you thought it was this, then it became that, and finally we arrived at what we are right now. So we call ourselves a recruitment intelligence platform that leverages artificial intelligence and data analytics for businesses to be able to find, evaluate, and hire candidates from anywhere in the world.
I mean, that's amazing, and just goes to show how often we end up creating things that solve a problem that we've had. It sounds like in all those cases, that's something that you did, and you're a 3-time founder, and that's an impressive feat. Most people would do it once and maybe say never again after they've gone through it. And you bootstrapped your first 2 businesses. So what did you learn from that experience of like bootstrapping from beginning to end?
So bootstrapping is very hard, and I even know that. So every business is hard, regardless of bootstrapping or not. But bootstrapping is significantly hard because everything is on the line. So this is you putting in your time. Your time is hard enough, but now you're putting all your resources, and it's even harder when you have a family and you have kids and you have, just you have to throw every single thing into it. That's what I realized. But then there are advantages to it. The advantages are because every single thing is on the line, you don't have a lot of room to get it wrong, meaning that you don't have a lot of money to just throw money at problems. Instead, your creativity comes up. And that was what I realized. So even while creating TECH1M, even though I knew I was always going to go the venture way, I started by also, bootstrapping a little bit. So my creativity would actually really come to life because that's what I was used to doing. So you really do, with a little amount of money, you do a whole lot of things because you're constantly thinking of how can I do this organically without just splashing the cash in it. And that's the things that you learn from that. You learn to talk to your customers a whole lot because you can't afford to get it wrong. Getting it wrong is quite expensive when it comes to bootstrapping. Even when you have venture funds, you still don't want to like get it wrong because then you lose time, and time is serious money when it comes to that. So I think those are some of the things that I have learned that give me an advantage, which is the fact that I don't have to splash out a lot of money to be able to do some things. I think about things diligently, and also you understand processes. The whole point of building something that is really scalable is also having like great foundations, understanding how to build a culture, understanding how to hire the right people and have the right people behind you, backing your vision. And all of those things are things that I feel like if I haven't come from a bootstrap sort of background, I probably, I'll just throw cash at things.
No, that's such a good point. And when it's your own money, you are always much more careful with it. Like you say, you have the business has a runway, but you then have your own personal runway because you're having to feed your finances into the business. And at some point, you want to get to a point that you're able to pay yourself a salary from that.
Absolutely.
And it's not an easy thing. You mentioned at the very beginning that the one thing that you had to do is back yourself. And I think that's not a very easy thing to do when there's so much on the line. Like you say, you have a family, you have, kids to think about, you have other responsibilities. And did you at any point find that really challenging to say, I have no choice, like this has to work because I've got all these responsibilities and people relying on me?
Oh, that goes without saying. There are days of tears, so many days of tears, especially in the beginning. And sometimes you think you've got it right and you were absolutely wrong. And it's just those sort of days that you're like, oh my God, we've done this well, and then this happens. So you have those sort of days, and it's just, and the way I see it is like a tunnel. you're in this tunnel, you can't see the lights on the other side. So it's all dark and you're just going into this dark place. And you're
Mm,
constantly trying to get to the other side of the tunnel, and you really don't know how close you are or how far away you are. And that is that sort of struggle that, so constantly you're throwing in yourself. And sometimes you have good days, you have bad days. And it's just, for me, I think that, have I gone through the struggle? Absolutely, you do though. But then I constantly have to remind myself it's a tunnel. There's definitely light somewhere. I just need to keep going. And every time so I use those sort of analogies to be able to help me keep pushing, because
mm,
without that, it's so easy to give up and just go take a job. Because if I try to,
mm,
I'll get a very good job, but I
mm,
know that a very good job is not why I was created. So I just feel like I can make a significant impact and I have the capability to do it. All I need to do is to have the grit and the resilience to persevere. And I think that those are kind of like the things that I see during this process, looking back at it right now.
No, that's all like such valuable advice, and I think it's great that you express that those days lead to tears, because there are so many people that go through that process and they're like, am I the only one? Like, you don't see that often until people are, I feel like, in a position where they feel comfortable enough to share it.
Yeah.
When people are at the very beginning and they have those nights where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, or this feels so hard, that's when you need the help. But a lot of the time, people don't necessarily ask for it.
Yeah, very true. And it's so difficult to share those times as well, because, I've had people, friends that you were typically doing similar jobs, and
Mm,
you tell them, oh, I'm going through this, and they're just looking at you. You put yourself through the stress by yourself. Why
mm,
not just drop it? But that's because they can't get it. And it
yeah.
takes someone with the same mindset. And it is also very difficult to find someone with the same mindset. That person obviously probably wouldn't even have your time because they're also
Mm,
busy trying to make their own thing come to life. So it's a
mm,
tough, lonely, no matter how much someone loves you, they still can't walk the walk for you. You still have to do it yourself. And it's a very, very lonely period. But it's just a matter of having, and I think maybe if you've got like previous experiences, it helps you know that you just need to stay in the game. It's gonna come
yeah.
to. But then without that, but even with that, there are days where, it's like it's just difficult. And then you
Mm,
have some other things that are systemic that are working against you.
mm,
And you just have to see beyond that, okay, regardless of all those things working against me, I persevere. Regardless
mm.
of all those things or figures that you've heard, oh, women only get this, that. I'm like, they're all figures. I'm going to be one of those tiny ones, those ones that are 1%, 2%. I'm in that. So I don't see the big, 98% don't get. I'm like, that's their problem. Not the problem, but if you get what I mean by that, like I will
Yeah.
find a way to find myself into the 2%. So I try to concentrate on the positive aspect
Hmm.
and not dwell so much on the negative, because I feel like if more people can find themselves on the positive aspect, we'll shift the balance. And
Yeah.
this is my own mentality, and that's how I try to persevere against all of
Yeah.
that.
No, that's a really good point to make about mindset. It's very important because you're gonna come up against a lot of people that love you but don't understand, like you said.
Mm.
You come up against all the systemic issues that exist that, you as one person cannot change overnight. Um, and you still have to either find the will to carry on or not. So no, that's all really, really good advice for people, especially those that are probably going through the hard times as well. And I know that Tech1M is they're backed by Techstars. So, that's a massive accelerator to even get on and be a part of and be backed by. That's a huge achievement. So it would be great to know how you found the accelerator process, and, do you recommend that other founders pursue going down that path?
Okay, yeah. So I feel like the accelerator definitely helped us. So I think for us, we didn't start with Techstars. Techstars was the biggest one we went into. The first one we actually went into was 1,000 Black Voices. And this is a big shout out to Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, who does all of this for, not for a lot. And I just stumbled on it on LinkedIn, to be fair, because I wasn't really thinking about accelerator programs. Like I mentioned, I didn't understand how to get into the world of venture. All I needed was, I just wanted to find a way to back myself and then understand it, or one way or the other. And when I stumbled upon this, I was like, okay, this is interesting. At the same time, I was already reading about venture backed, what does, all of these terminologies, which is a whole lot of them, what does this mean? So basically then sparked my interest. They were doing a trade mission to New York. And they were like, okay, so you go through a period of 3 months of acceleration. And if you are then selected, you would then be selected to go to New York, although it's still self-funded, you still have to fund yourself in there, but then they will then bring in investors to you. So I think with that, during that period, I already had my idea. I had my own version that I thought was a very good pitch deck. It turned out it wasn't. So so I learned quite a lot there, during that period. And with a few people that I still call very, very good friends right now. Many of them are also back right now, and I've gone ahead to raise. And what tended to happen, we then went onto the trip, the New York trip, and that was where I met Gary Stewart, who was the MD of Techstars, powered by JP Morgan. And I remember pitching to him, and he just basically was like, what's that? He didn't really get it. And I had to, but I didn't. So typically, I would have just gone into my shell, and I'm like, okay, he didn't get it. What have I done wrong? But I was so convinced about the idea, so I pulled him to the side again, and I'm like, still trying to make him see reason. But I said, okay, do you know what? I'm pitching tonight at the consulate of this building. Would you come and actually see the full thing, my full 3 minutes pitch, and then tell me if you think I should apply? And that was how it came. It was about 10 of us pitching. I pitched last, which was very good. And then he just came to me and said, apply. And so I felt, okay, that means it got something. And I think from there, I was able to then apply to Techstars. Now, Techstars is, I would say, apart from YC, Techstars is one of the biggest accelerators out there. And you considered as the 1% if you're able to get in, because they get thousands of applications and only people in every cohort. So for me, I was like, oh my God. But then you had to go through about, was it 4 stages of interviews?
Oh, wow. Okay.
In order to get selected. But once you get selected, you have 3 months for them to actually accelerate you. And now this is the difference between that and some of the other programs I've been afterwards, is that this is a daily acceleration. It's not, oh, you come in, this is, online. No. You're physically within the office. You have a space for your team that they need to move into the office. You're given a space for that period. And if you have to change your software, you start to change your product right there. If you have to, you're monitoring OKRs, you're monitoring. So many things that I've heard about, some of them I do already, many I didn't do. I learned them from there, and I started to then build that into what we were creating. We came out of Techstars with a completely different idea. Now, not 100% completely different, but then it tweaked the idea full circle that I had we went in there wanting to do global hiring, helping people to do contracts, similar to what Deal was doing, but focusing on Africa as one of the key places we wanted to start. We came out as pretty much a recruitment software. And this was because of all the different, I would say, education that we got while in there. We had a lot of people from, unicorns coming to talk to us that were previously backed by Techstars. You had people that just really had people that, that valued at billions coming to talk to you, that this is their journey. And you're saying that they're not so different from me. And all of that made you see that you could do it. and they're giving you all the possible resources. So back to your question, do I think going for an accelerator program is a good idea? I would say absolutely yes. Why? If you're going, depending on the journey you want to go, if you think you want to go on a journey that requires a venture, then you have to get the knowledge from somewhere. If you ask me and you didn't really have that knowledge, or you were just there, just quite shaky, you don't have it like all done, but you had a very, very good idea that you think is scalable and can revolutionize one aspect or one industry, then you need people that have been there, done that, to be able to push you and give you the backing that you require. And the backing is not just finances, backing is network. So while in Techstars, we went to pretty much the very first weekend was at, how can I forget this now? Was at the Hamptons. And we basically were there with investors. And so these are people that you were like, oh, scared to talk to. And they're like, it's not that scary. They're just people like you, just have a job to do. Now, understanding things from their perspective, understand why they should back you or not. I'm not giving them a reason to back me if this is what I'm presenting, So you have to understand that. So for me, that was what that did for me. I reverse engineered everything, walking in their shoes, trying to see they also have people they have to get money from, and they have to return their fund. They need this X amount to be able to return their fund. So that means everybody they pick has to be able to return the fund back. Am I able to return their fund back? If the answer is no, be back. If the answer is yes, then what do I need to do to make the answer yes? And all of that, I learned that going through that journey. So should you apply for a top accelerator? Absolutely, yes. Is it difficult to get in? Yeah. For me, I was lucky. I did it once, I got in once. However, I've applied for other things. I applied for YC, I didn't get in. So it's just, I really didn't know. But after that, I learned things about New York. I learned things about the American system. But then I came back to the UK and I realized that the UK is slightly different. Yeah. So I also then had to, my easiest way was also to go through accelerator programs that would give me the nuances that I needed to understand in the UK. And this was where, I ended up going to quite a few. I was still in Tech Nation. I ended up doing the Barclays, the very first venture growth program. ICE was also another one that we ended up doing, and also Vantage. So with all those programs, I was able to, every single program, there was something I'm looking for. So I'm not just applying. My inbox is filled up with come apply. I don't apply for everything. But then I'm just selecting the ones that I think will accelerate my growth in a particular area. So it could be I'm looking for a network. It could be I'm looking for a network of investors. It could be I'm looking for strategic partnerships. It could be I want standing in a particular area, or I want to be attached to a particular market. And that is what makes me go for those accelerator programs. So accelerator programs, I think you should definitely think about it. They are good. They are very, very good. But you have to know the ones that you're going for and understand, what is this really going to do for me? Am I just going in there for a check to say, yes, I'm going to an accelerator program? If that is it, then I don't think that is the best way. But I think you could go in there to say, this is the goal I want to achieve at the end of it. And will this program do that for me? And then you apply based on that.
No, that's great advice for people, especially those that don't know much about accelerator programs. And there are so many different ones, like you said, it's almost like they're all saying, pick me, pick me. And it's hard to know which ones are worth the time, because some of them, not all of them are, but it sounds like the ones that you went to are really well planned and designed to help you achieve all of the things that you wanted to achieve whilst you were there. And that actually takes me on nicely to my next question, which is, you've said that you went through Tech Nation, ICE, Vantage, and a few other programs. And so how do founders actually get into some of those? Is it all application processes, or some of them invite only? There's different processes for different types of accelerators.
Yeah, so I feel like, how did I find out? So for starters, I constantly work with other founders, because I understand that it's a lonely journey. So they also, so I find founders that we're at very similar sort of, I'll call it maybe stages. And based on that, information flows. So if I find something new, I'm dropping in and I'm like, oh, this will be a good one for you. If I find, if they find something and they're dropping. So I have those type of clicks, and that helps as well, because that makes me see things that I probably wouldn't have seen. So I know that some of those programs, that's how I found them. Like for instance, ICE was one of my friends, Shade, that was like, oh, have you checked this out? Dupe, who is another founder that I actually respect, did it, and what she said, it was very good. I looked at it, I checked it out. They're only picking 8 people, and the network is interesting. The sort of people that are in ICE have been there, done that. So I felt like they'll be able to pour in the sort of knowledge that I actually needed at that point in time for me, considering, okay, yes, I've now learned about investments, I'm now backed, I'm now this and that, but then I still now need to build strategic partnerships and understand how to really build something that scales and how to really grow your network and all of that. Grow London was one that is actually another very, very amazing one. So basically, that was recommended to me right from New York, that I needed to apply to do that. They have a criteria for, and many of all of these things, they have a criteria. You have to look at the criteria. Do you meet the criteria? But then don't also, if you meet 5 of the 6, still apply. If you meet 4, still apply. If you meet 3, maybe not. So I feel like they have this, I felt I met almost everything, but maybe there was one that was still debatable. But then I still gave it a shot, because, and then I was able to get in, because as far as they were concerned, you definitely then met their criteria in the key things that they wanted. So maybe it was the one that is desirable but not compulsory. That might be the one that that is desirable but not compulsory. That might be the one that's you can't do anything about. And so I feel like the whole point is you should still apply regardless of whatever is going on. Other ways in which you can find these programs are actually just through normal Google search. If you know that you're looking for that constantly, I feel like right now there's so many programs out there. Barclays have a whole lot of programs. Founder Vine has a whole lot of programs. Tech Nation constantly bringing up things. You want to stay curious and out there listening to what is going on. And when those sort of, applications come through, they typically would have deadlines. You look at it, you look at the criteria. Do I meet this criteria? And then, like I said, even if you don't meet all of it, give it a shot. But then don't forget, you have to understand, what is this program going to bring to me at the end of it? If some programs are targeted for a particular reason, is maybe investment readiness. If you already understand, or you've gone through investment readiness, how many do you want to go through and waste your time? So you have to think about all of that. If it's, do you want to keep going through investment readiness and they're telling you things you already know? What's the format of the program? Does it require you to put in a whole lot of hours? You have to look at every aspect and align it to where you are before you know what you're applying to.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So those are great things for founders to take into consideration, because what you don't want is to end up on a bunch of accelerators that are all samey. Exactly. So you're getting the same thing over and over again from different people. Yes. And whereas what you did is, it sounds like you layered it really well, and each of the accelerators you went to added a different something to the mix. It really helped you to take it up a notch every time that you finished one.
Absolutely. And I have this analogy of looking down and looking up. So I have a period where I look down. That means all I could do is build. And now, when I say build, I have a team. My team is so we're building every day, regardless of me looking down, looking up. However, what I mean is now me concentrating on not going to any events, nothing. All I want to do is, we need to push this thing out. And at that time, everything else. So you have those periods. You have to have those periods. Otherwise, you really can't do a lot of push. And then I have periods where, okay, I've been looking down for so long. I need people to know what we're doing. Then I need to look up what's out there. And this has to do with what else. Now that I've done this, I'm missing something.
Mm.
Where do I need to go to find what we're missing? And then I look up, and that's when, okay, it could be an accelerator, it could be an event, it could be I need to invest in myself and get an advisor in those sort of areas. It could be, it just really depends on what it is.
No, that makes sense. And one thing that you also mentioned earlier is that you started going through these accelerators and learned that there were differences between the processes and expectations for UK investors, US investors, African investors. So what were some of those core differences that you noticed when you were speaking to those, different investors from different parts of the world?
So I felt like there's the nuances on how they speak, how they relate. So I'll give so anyone that has raised from an American investor or has pitched to an American investor understands that they don't have time for how is the weather, They're just like going straight to it. It's just very, very direct. And you can't go there and be your British self and be very modest. You want to be the best thing since sliced bread. Why am I investing in you if you're not the best in the market? You get the point. So it means that for a British person, you're borderline arrogant when you're pitching to an American investor, but you still cannot cross the arrogant line. So that sort of, you have to find a little brag. You have to find, and those were the things that were so difficult for me, especially while I was in Texas. I'm like, no, I don't know. How do you just start and tell someone this? And they're like, that is what they need to hear. So you need to learn that. But then that approach doesn't work when you're speaking to British investors, because most of them are financial people. They want facts and figures. They don't just want you to say, oh, yes, I'll bring them on down. Closer to, they want you to say, okay, this is how your money is going to be paid back. So you have to still find a way to tell a story, but then within that story, make sure that you concentrate on what really matters to them. And then I haven't really had the luxury of pitching African investors. So I've just been able to pitch, pretty much people, it may be a little bit of Arab, but even that, an interesting conversation. I wouldn't really say we took that anywhere. It's more of the reverse. They're trying to talk me into coming into, like the Arab nations and stuff. But so far, my experience has been UK, US, and I could see the differences. In as much as you get better valuation in the US, because they have a bigger population, their appetite to risk is higher than a typical investor in the UK. The valuations you hear in the US, oh wow, it's quite, it's founder friendly. However, in the UK, it's a little bit different. We have our sets. 2.5 million is what we call pre-seed. They're just sort of some figures that you just hear, and you just know that those are kind of like the nuances in the UK. But then I would say for me, the reason why we decided to raise in the UK, even though we ended up with a mixture of both, was the fact that the UK has this advantage when it comes to you raising your early rounds, which is the SEIS and EIS. And I felt like it would be a missed opportunity if we don't take advantage of that, because one, we have an attractive product, and which, and then it makes it even a lot more attractive to investors if we're telling them that, oh, you get to have SEIS and EIS with this investment, meaning that you have some tax benefits with it as well. So I felt like when you're looking at that early round, the UK is a very, very good place to raise if you are SEIS, EIS eligible. Going forward, depending on what you're then doing, you then need to start to think about the UK, the US, in terms of the valuation, and also the markets. The US wants everything, you're writing your pitch deck. I have different types of pitch deck. You have the ones that are in pounds, because the people want to see things that they recognize and are used to. So, of course, when you're presenting things in dollars, because you're used to pounds, it obviously looks bigger because of the 1.25 sort of calculation. So sometimes that, but then a UK investor doesn't understand why you are speaking in dollars. They want you to keep speaking in pounds because, you know, that is the currency which they're going to deal with you in. So it's just all of those things that you just, those tiny subtle differences that you need to know. And those things, considering you don't have a lot of time to make a first impression, they're only going to give you how many minutes. Most of the time, you start to build a relationship even before you jump on the call, if you can.
No, that's so true. And you mentioned something that, you know, that a lot of founders kind of know of, but don't always have the full knowledge of, which is the SEIS and EIS programs, which, you know, they really encourage investors in the UK to take a calculated risk because they have like a level of protection. So how did that actually help you with your raise? Did that help you raise faster with the UK investors? Was it like much easier to get people in to get that yes?
Yeah, so I think for us, in terms of, so we raised early April, just before the tax deadline of April 5th.
All right.
This is where an accelerator like Vantage helped us with that. So they had an SEIS accelerator, 4 weeks accelerator, to teach you everything you need to understand and bring investors that only invest in SEIS to you. And that's why it's like, but then with all that, we were ready. We already knew what SEIS was. So I understood I needed to take advantage of that. I was planning to maybe push the race to June, but then when I saw why it needed to be right now, because I think that program happened early this year, end of February, the whole of March was the program, it was a 4 weeks.
Right.
And then quite a number of us were able to raise within that period.
Wow.
So, but don't forget, while I was doing that, I was also accelerating with ICE, with Tech Nation, and with Barclays. So it was a period of all I needed to do was to get the knowledge, the know-how, and everything that I really required to push this forward. So it was good that I got the funding. So you could see all the different accelerators. One was for funding, one was for network, one was for growth, one was for sales. All of it together ended up. So I can't say, even though Vantage brought the introduction, but the introduction wouldn't have paid off if Barclays didn't bring the knowledge, if Techstars didn't already me. If, do you understand? So, and then if the product wasn't ready, if everything came together to be able to make that bit work. So because I had the full SEIS, because I understood what that meant even before applying for the SEIS assurance certificate, I knew that I couldn't just give anybody SEIS. So my majority of my angels, I have a few angels on my cap table, are from America, so they're not eligible. So meaning I still had the full 250 of the SIS to give, and I still had my whole EIS of whatever number that could be to be able to help with the raise. So that makes it easier to have the conversation. So don't forget, because you have SEIS doesn't mean you're going to be backed. No. It means that if you now have a fantastic product, a fantastic team, a fantastic attitude, a scalable product, and you can return the fund, you've just made the conversation, you've de-risked yourself a little bit more.
Yes, 100%. And that's what it's all about, really. It's about de-risking so that investors see it as close to a no-brainer as possible. That's basically the position that you want to be in.
Exactly. So you try to just put yourself in their shoes and do those sort of things. So by the time you're selling it to them, oh, by the way, I have this, it becomes like, oh, by the time they're going into their investment committee to actually talk about your product, they're coming out with a result that might be positive.
No, 100%. And, it sounds like well, I mean, not even sounds like you went through a huge amount to get yourself in the position that you're in, where you have that backing and, you went through several accelerators. Like I said, you bootstrapped businesses before, you've done a hell of a lot to be in a position that you're in now. And it speaks volumes about the achievements that you've achieved. So what challenges did you face as you were raising this time round, and how did you try to overcome them?
So I think sometimes, okay, so this is, I won't say this time around, let me just kind of put everything together. So when I came out of textiles, the important thing, everyone expects a whole lot of from you. You get, so it's like this person that just come out, you're just going to accelerate. You just, you're just going to take over the world, and that is what is expected of you. But it doesn't work like that immediately, because
Mm,
all of this knowledge, you don't even have time to really put a lot of it into action immediately. Now you're trying to put all of them into action. So because of that, sometimes one of the mistakes I made was there were a few investors that I spoke to, and I was a little bit too early, in the conversation. So that was one of the things that I learned. There's a difference between building relationships and actually speaking for investments immediately. So I did that, but maybe not so many investors, because I had a list of a long, number of investors that I could actually start having conversations with. And by the time I had 5 or 6, I started to see like a common thread. And with that
mm,
common thread, I was like, oh, this is how we're being perceived. I need to make a change. And so I was able to take that and make that sort of change. Now that I know that I've then made the change, I then had to make a decision that, okay, while I was making the change, if anyone is going to have a conversation with me, because don't forget, I've tried to book a lot of meetings with different investors because you have access to them.
mm.
But now my tone just basically changed. I'm not raising. However, I want you to know that this is what we're doing. So when we are raising, we will be, we want to know if it's going to be something you're going to be interested in. And then the tone is also different. So you're hearing some of them are like, oh, okay, interesting. Send me your data room. But I know better with the different knowledge I've now, been able to get. I'll send them the data room when I want to send them the data room, because do we meet the thesis of what they need to invest in?
Yeah.
All those sort of things are, the conversation just switched, because I started to see it as, I have a good deal and I'm inviting you to come onto my table, not the other way around. You are looking for a good deal. I'm here. So if I can convince you that I am a good deal, and I don't have to do over, and there's so many of you that I can also try to go. So I also then decide to become picky, if you get what I mean. So it's
Yeah.
the pickiness is not out of trying to be arrogant. No, it's like I look at the investor, I look at who they've invested in the past. I'm trying to form a pattern if they've, and for me, I'm like a double negative to some of them. I'm female and I'm also black. But then
Hmm.
I have to look beyond that and also realize that, do they invest in software companies that are, in people tech?
Mm,
The answer is yes. Have they invested in a woman before? If the answer is no, would I be the first woman? Is that going to be too much convincing? You know,
mhm.
so I can just put them on the medium. Oh, they've invested in a woman, but it just happens not to be a woman of color. But they've invested in a person of color before. Okay, so maybe I'm going to be the first woman of color that they're going to invest in. So I'm not looking at it as so much, because I feel like sometimes we overthink things, which is
Mm.
the fact that, forget about your and I say this with very, very with the highest respect, because I wear these shoes every day and I know where it hurts. But I'm trying to say, I just don't follow the entire narrative that, this and that. I feel like a good deal is a good deal. It just depends on, I don't care who's bringing it. A good deal is
Mhm.
a good deal. And that's what people need to see. If you
Mhm.
can prove beyond reasonable doubt that
Mhm.
this is a very, very good deal, then the person is then stupid, not to take it on. How I see it. Do you understand? But then sometimes we don't prove it enough. And so giving them, ways to just come out of it. Now, have I gone through with people that ended up not taking my deal? Absolutely, yes. Do I think they're stupid? Maybe not. Maybe I wasn't ready enough. Maybe I didn't prove it enough. Maybe I still had homework to do, And so when you see things in those sort of facts and figures, and you try to just lay things out in those sort of ways as well, I feel like that will help you go a bit further. Then it helps you stay more prepared for the road ahead. Is it difficult? Absolutely. No one wants to hear no. You've spoken to 3 people and they're telling you no, 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 no. You're something in you, no matter how confident you are, something it takes a hit. And then you need to find a way to pipe yourself back up. No, I'm great. This is fantastic. They're just not seeing this. And someone is going to say, because all you need is one yes and everything. And so it's just that sort of back and forth that I believe I was able to do. And it never ends, So even though we've just raised, we're still raising, because you still have a long road ahead of us to be able to really get to where we want to get to. And I know that for every stage you get to, you take a whole new lesson. So right now I'm learning something completely new, So it's like, oh my God, how do you scale? You've been able to get people paying you. Fantastic, well done. How do you get 1 million people to pay you? That's a different level. And so what does that mean? I need to understand that. What I need to look up and find a way to be able to get that knowledge and how. So those are things I need to figure out to be able to, would it be through collaboration? Why do I have to sell things one by one? Why can't I just sell 10,000 at a go? What do you do to really make someone want to de-risk yourself? It could be through compliance, like you see people building softwares and then you haven't taken the time to go spend money on doing your policies, your compliances, your ISPs, and you want a big company to partner with you. How is that possible? So there are just some things that you need to just educate yourself on and be able to de-risk yourself. So those conversations are easier. I won't say they're easy because they're never easy. And at the same time, you also then try to build your network as you go along. So if you're not in the room, someone else can say, oh, Jade is absolutely fantastic. She just so happens to have a great product. And that makes the conversation a little bit easier as well. Then you still have to go sell it. So those are kind of like I don't even know the question anymore. I just kept talking.
No, that's all, again, like all valid and all really helpful things for founders to bear in mind, especially when, like I said, the challenge is how do you make your idea bulletproof? How do you make sure that people feel like you're a sure deal? That they will get a return from you. That's not an easy thing to convince investors of, especially in this climate where economically the world has been on fire for a few years, so people are a bit more sensitive to what they invest in. But I will wrap up with our last question, which is, if you could go back and do it again, would you do anything differently? And if so, what?
To be fair, I think like life is all about memories and life is all about living. Would I do anything differently? Not so much, because I think my work is unique to me. And I feel every single thing I've experienced, the good, the bad, the ugly, are all dots that come together to form who I am today. And I think I'm going to build more dots to even take me to the next level that I want to get to. But then if there's anything that I would just like to constantly remind myself of is that, life is made of people and people make people. So as I walk through this journey called life, I have to be kind and to the different people that I meet along the way, because you really do not know where you can meet them again and what they could really help you do. I feel like those are kind of like advices that I give to my own children, and it's the advices that I look back and I give to myself every single day, But sometimes you're doing things, it gets into your head because you're just so busy and you think you're the busiest person in the world. But it's not all about you, you're just here to play a part. And so I feel like, and I've seen doors open that I didn't even knock on the door. And this is because of this sort of lessons that someone just feels like you're fantastic and they're they're willing to stake their integrity and open up a door for you. So I think it's just, if there's anything I would do, I won't say differently, anything I would like to remind myself of constantly is just be yourself, be unique, your journey is unique, and just be kind to people as much as you can.
Yeah, no, that is very true. It's like, be kind to people, you never know what battle they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Especially when people are building. There's often many battles and many fires being put out when people are knees deep in building their company, which is often their dream. It's their dream to run something that is their own and change the world in their own unique way that's meaningful to them.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much, Tommie, for all of your advice and sharing your experiences. We've come to an end very quickly, so we've kind of flown through all of the questions, and just like a huge thank you to you, and also like a huge congratulations on all of the things that you've achieved, because you've done, like I said before, an incredible amount, and that's also very inspirational for other founders who are at the beginning process, where they're like, okay, I know it's going to be hard, but it's great to see other people have achieved so much as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No, that's fine. And well, thank you to everybody else who has been listening. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation today. We will leave links to Tommie so that you can find her on LinkedIn and you can connect with her, and to TECH1M as well, so you can take a look at their platform. We'll also leave links to any accelerators Tommie mentioned throughout the chat so that you guys can take a look as well. But we'll see you on the next episode.